At 2:30 p.m. over the South China Sea, an American helicopter's activities made Beijing incredibly nervous.
To counter this threat, they quickly scrambled their best attack helicopter to aggressively stop the American aircraft.
But the inexperienced Chinese pilot was unknowingly about to make a completely career-ending mistake.
For the next 72 minutes, while trying to intimidate the most powerful navy on Earth, the pilot taught America critical information.
The Z-10 pilot had launched from Xiamen 28 minutes earlier, with orders to basically just scare off the Americans.
The US Navy helicopter's Harmonics knife.
The submarine had been submerged for 48 hours and was desperately attempting to recharge its batteries in this location.
Diesel submarines are like holding your breath underwater. Eventually, they must come up for air.
Foreign military aircraft, you are approaching Chinese territorial waters. Alter your course immediately.
The Z-10 pilot banked hard across the Romeo's nose, but there was one critical problem with the threat.
They were 50 nautical miles from Chinese territory in international airspace where America had every legal right.
The Romeo's three-person crew did not flinch because they already knew something critical that Beijing did not know.
For the next 72 minutes, while trying to intimidate the US Navy, China was about to do something technically very stupid.
The Romeo was not just sightseeing. Those bumps on its fuselage are powerful ALQ-210 electronic support measures pods.
Think of them as digital vacuum cleaners, sucking up every electronic emission from the aggressively flying Z-10. Radar frequencies, communication protocols, engine harmonics, everything was being meticulously and automatically cataloged by the Americans.
The Z-10 is essentially what happens when you order a very famous Apache helicopter from a deeply discounted website.
It was built with leftover Russian design assistance from the 1990s when Russia needed cash and China desperately needed helicopters.
Beijing's pilot dramatically fired 2 flares around the Romeo. This was not an attack, but pure, simple theater.
The American crew's response was pointing their dipping sonar directly at the submarine below the surface.
The message was crystal clear. "We still see your friend down there," so the submarine crash-dived in panic.
The crash dive made so much cavitation noise that sensors across the entire carrier strike group heard it clearly.
In underwater warfare, noise equates to destruction, and the aggressive Chinese pilot had just compromised his own submarine.
But Beijing's pilot was about to discover something much worse than compromising his own submerged sub.
At 2:48 p.m., after 18 minutes of failed intimidation, his fire control radar finally achieved a lock on the Romeo.
That confidence lasted exactly 3 seconds. That is how long it took for the Americans to flip a certain switch.
What happened next was the electronic warfare equivalent of a simple super soaker trying to fight a Navy SEAL team.
A nearby EA-18 Growler started blasting the Z-10 with electromagnetic energy, using its powerful ALQ-99 jamming pods.
Suddenly, the Chinese pilot's radar looked exactly like a television screen, with absolutely no signal whatsoever.
His lock didn't just disappear. The American helicopter appeared to split into 12 completely different radar contacts.
Some contacts were flying backward, others were seemingly teleporting. One inexplicably showed up inside his own cockpit.
This is precisely what happens when 1990s Russian hand-me-down technology meets modern, full-spectrum American electronic warfare capabilities.
The ALQ-99 is frequency agile, hopping across the electromagnetic spectrum faster than the Chinese radar can ever follow. While Beijing's pilot was looking on one frequency, the jamming had already seamlessly moved to 50 others. But it got significantly worse. What appeared on his threat display next gave him legitimate goosebumps quickly. The US carrier strike group had just instantly lit him up with their powerful spy radars from the horizon. Super Hornets were launching from the carrier deck, not to engage, but to remind Beijing that this Romeo was not alone. The Chinese pilot tried everything. switching frequencies, increasing power, and even turning his entire radar off and on.
The Romeo's electronic warfare suite operates across multiple bands simultaneously, creating full-spectrum dominance effortlessly.
Meanwhile, the American crew remained so calm that they were likely discussing their lunch plans for the day.
The Romeo's pilot decided to send one more message, a slight bank to point the dipping sonar at the distressed submarine below. The submarine, still clearly being tracked despite all aerial interference, was now making desperate and noisy evasion turns.
Each high-speed turn instantly created more noise, and more noise meant that American tracking systems got better, not worse.
The U.S. commander finally transmitted with a professionalism that only comes from absolute technological and tactical superiority.
This is the US Navy aircraft operating in international airspace in accordance with international law. We will maintain course and altitude.
Communication protocols showed their encryption was severely outdated, and radar frequencies revealed 0 updates since the initial Russian design.
Even the distinct harmonic of the rotor blades were useful for identifying Z-10s from 50 miles away, just by sound alone.
But the highly frustrated Chinese pilot was clearly not done embarrassing himself with his aggressive, predictable flying.
He was about to learn why his decision to push harder was exactly the totally wrong move for his mission.
Frustrated by complete electronic failure, Beijing's pilot close to 500 meters, mistakenly thinking proximity would magically help his situation.
At this close distance, he could see the American door gunner, manning the powerful GAU 21.50 caliber machine gun.
The Chinese pilot initiated aggressive maneuvers designed to force a predictable defensive response from the superior American aircraft.
Each move pushed the Z-10's airframe to its G limit, exhausting the pilot and tanking his precious airspeed immediately.
The Romeo, built on the proven Blackhawk airframe, can pull significantly higher G-loads while maintaining stable flight control.
Beijing's pilot was essentially tuckering himself out, while the unflappable Americans simply watched his every move.
The Romeo's AAR-47 system was silently tracking every single aspect of the aggressive Z-10's movement and performance.
This priceless data would later determine precisely how to program American missiles to successfully intercept these specific helicopters in battle. The Z-10 was literally providing its own defeat instructions through its frantic and highly predictable combat maneuvering.
The Romeo's FLIR camera was recording everything in crystal clear 1080p infrared, meticulously cataloging every hotspot.
These thermal signatures would tell American engineers exactly where heat-seeking missiles should aim for a decisive, guaranteed kill shot.
The Chinese pilot was literally providing the Americans with a detailed step-by-step tutorial on precisely how to destroy his helicopter easily.
If he thought his limited weapons could tip the balance, he was certainly in for yet another embarrassing shock.
The Romeo's GAU-21 has an effective range of nearly 2,000 meters, with highly powerful armor-piercing incendiary rounds.
Those rounds would punch through the Z-10's cabin like flimsy tissue paper, which, given certain manufacturing standards, it basically was.
The Chinese pilot felt the helicopter's stick fighting him hard, but running now meant an embarrassing court-martial conviction.
The Romeo systems logged every frequency hop, every pulse pattern, and every desperate attempt to instantly burn through the severe jamming.
When Beijing's pilot attempted laser designation, the Romeo sensors instantly identified the exact model and the software version.
This meant America now knew how to jam not just this helicopter, but every Chinese vehicle using the very same system.
The engines were running at 105% power, creating an infrared bloom 40% brighter than during normal, acceptable operations.
Future American missiles would be expertly programmed to recognize this exact thermal pattern and target it specifically every time. The electronic intelligence collection was even more damaging. Their frequency hopping pattern was found to be highly predictable.
American systems could now easily predict and jam Chinese military communications across the entire massive theater of operations.
As the tense encounter dragged on, the Z-10's performance degraded visibly from overheating and extreme, self-inflicted overexertion.
At 3:42 p.m., the Chinese pilot watched the Romeo's dipping sonar splash into the water again, directly below the helicopters.
After a grueling 72 minutes, he had not moved the Americans an inch, realizing ground control already knew his failure.
The American crew had accumulated 72 minutes of invaluable intelligence gold on China's current combat technology and pilot stress response.
This incredible revelation makes the message to China clear for the world to see. Stick to manufacturing knockoff iPhones.